Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Sanctuary. I'm back. We've got wide receivers part 2. I'm joined with another fantastic guest. You may know him as Ali. He's 1/3 of the Fantasy Wildcard podcast. I know him as at FF Dynasty Grill. He is one of the hottest Dynasty-focused podcasters in the UK. Ali, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Thanks, Rich. Thank you for having me on. Really enjoyed coming on your podcast last year to talk about some of the tie-ins. So to talk about some of the wide receivers as well is a bit of a bonus. Some really interesting guys to dive into. And we've got the draft coming up in just over 2 weeks' time. So it's really exciting times in terms of the dynasty calendar. So yeah, really good. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, as you said, it's certainly heating up. We obviously have done wide receiver part 1. That was with Mike, as you'll know, Daddy's Home. If you haven't checked that out, the link will be in the comments below. Go and check that out. That's the top 6 wide receivers in ADP that we've already talked about. Myself and Ali, we're going to dive straight in to the next 4. So coming in at wide receiver 7 in ADP, I think it's safe to say everybody's favourite sleeper. I think I've seen more hype for this player on Twitter and on podcasts and in articles than any wide receiver in the draft. Yet he's still wide receiver 7 in ADP. I mean, Marvin Mims, Ali, are you joining the hype train? Are you one of those that think he could be a sneaky grab in Dynasty?
Yeah, I do. I feel like I was on Marvin Mims early, but it turns out probably a lot of people were very similar. Is someone that I've probably used that shh meme on my timeline just so many times because of people throwing out stats early about Marvin Mims as one to watch, and I'm just like, just let it stew, just keep it quiet, and he can be our secret. But unfortunately, he's nobody's secret right now, and that combine, he absolutely smashed the combine and really opened up people's eyes to Marvin Mims to look into him more. And with that, unfortunately, his ADP has risen quite massively. He actually, it's in line with mine. It's wide receiver 7 for me. And he's someone that I do struggle on because I want to put him higher, but I've just got a few little question marks on him. But yeah, such a prospect that I absolutely love. See, 5'11", 183 pounds, which is fine. Maybe a tiny bit light. But he certainly doesn't show it on the field. He plays really, really strong and bigger than what his frame suggests. And as I mentioned at that combine, it opened up a lot of eyes. He was the 4th fastest wide receiver in terms of the 40 time, that 4.38. He was 5th in the vertical jump. He was 12th in the broad jump, 4th in the free cone. So really impressive scores from Marvin Mims. And yeah, really opened up people's eyes. Really versatile wide receiver, can play in the slot, and he can also play outside. And he was also used as a punt returner, so just showed off that blaze and speed. And it's funny because I always try and watch 2 to 3 games on each prospect, and just speed for me didn't really catch my eye with Marvin Mims as someone that was going to be that fast at the combine, but just to put down that speed as well is just another big tick in the box. In his career, he averaged.
Go on.
He averaged 19.5 yards per reception in his college career. So really impressive from Marvin Mims. He's reminded me a bit like a Chris Godwin light. It's a bit of a comp that I've used. He's quite a physical receiver, but surprising for someone of his size. But yeah, really, really impressive.
Yeah, I think that, the first thing that jumps off the page is that freshman year. Anytime you can break out 18 is impressive. You look at the advanced stats, 32% targets per route run is mind-blowing. To do that as an 18-year-old freshman is absolutely insane. He also had a yards per route run that year of over 4, which is just insane. I really like him. I think he's, you can see on screen that sort of ADOT every year over 15 yards. It shows how often he was used as that downfield threat, kind of stretching on the outside. But I don't think that is he's not limited to just being a deep threat. I really think that he can be someone that can be used on the underneath routes, those sort of shallow crosses, things like that. Get the ball in his hands where, you mentioned his punt return ability. He's fantastic after the catch as well. And I think that that's going to hopefully allow him to be more than just a kind of a one-trick pony at the next level. Yes, there is a slight concern in terms of the size. He is not short, but he's kind of slender. I do have a slight concern about his hands. I think it's not that he's got drops. He's a good kind of receiver of the ball, but it is a lot of arms and body catches rather than hands going away from the body, which it can be kind of ironed out at the next level. But I do think that that's a potential concern where he's not going to be wide open as he was in college as often in the NFL. And I think that if he's not a go and get it kind of receiver in terms of catching the ball away from his body, it could be an issue, because as soon as you're catching the ball into your body, you're allowing the defenders to get that kind of opportunity to disrupt things. So a couple of slight concerns. I really can't get why he's falling where he's falling in current times of both dynasty drafts, but also the NFL drafts. You know, there's talk that he could be a day 3 pick, maybe sneak into the 3rd round. I mean, I think that he's got the potential and should be talked about around the Jalen Hyatts and players like that. So, yeah, I really like Mims. I think he's going about where I'd want to take him. I don't think he's good enough, or I'd have enough confidence to be taking him ahead of any of the kind of the big 6, as we're calling them. But yeah, really, really interesting prospect, and certainly someone that if he lands on the right team as a good number 2 opposite a bigger bodied X type receiver that will pull away coverage, I think he could be a really, really interesting kind of wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 for fantasy, but a kind of an NFL wide receiver 2 as such. Do you think that there's enough volume that he will be able to command so that he can be a fantasy star, Ali?
Yeah, there's certainly question marks. I perhaps think he was underused at Oklahoma. Certainly ran a pretty limited route tree over there. Just you look at the last year, just 54 receptions in the 13 games played. It's not someone that really stands out to you. All right, the 1,000 yards is really nice, but for me, I do see his ceiling as a wide receiver 2 on his team, not a wide receiver 1, which is fine. You know, if he finds the right offense to be in, wide receiver 2 is absolutely fine for fantasy and someone that I want on my team. But yeah, there's certainly question marks on whether he can become a target hog. I don't see that in his range of outcomes. I know I love his versatility, but a lot will come down to whether he gets day 2 or day 3 draft capital. I can't see him getting day 3 draft capital, but I have seen it touted as well. So there is slight concerns there, but for me, his ceiling's only going to be a wide receiver 2 on his team, which obviously limits his ability in fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving across to a very different type of receiver, Cedric Tillman is wide receiver 8 in ADP, obviously coming from that slightly unique, shall we say, Tennessee offense that basically doesn't mirror anything that you're going to see in the NFL. Took a little while to get going in college, obviously had a first 3 years of his career marred by injury, but broke out in a huge way in his 4th year. As one of the lone big-bodied X-type receivers, do you think Cedric Tillman could be a sneaky buy, a sneaky under-the-radar option in dynasty drafts in the next month or so?
Yeah, I do. I've seen his range of outcomes be so varied. One of the players where I've seen him go probably mid-second round. I've probably seen him early second round, but I've also seen him slip to the mid-third round, late third round. He's someone that the range of outcomes are really real right now anyway, in terms of before the draft capital. You mentioned that concerns about him only breaking out as a senior. He's going to be obviously 23 years old when he hits the NFL. Yeah, he did look really great in that 2021 season, 1,081 yards, 12 touchdowns. Just shows ability. I mean, in this class where, say, 75% of these wide receivers, perhaps more, they're all smaller guys right now coming out. So it is really refreshing to see a Cedric Tillman. And there's not many players that play like him in this draft class. So it could play into his hands that he only needs one NFL team to have that need to take a chance on him. In which case, if they do, his draft capital is going to be probably higher than where I want to take him. He's currently my wide receiver 8. I'm probably happy where he is right now as that sort of late second, early third round pick. But yeah, there is some concerns with him. But he also I think he's got quite a lot of upside. So someone that if I do land him in, say, that late second round, early third round, I'm quite excited about the prospect that he could bring.
Yeah, I really like him. I think that on tape he does a lot of stuff that I like. He's not just a pure straight line athlete. He's got some wiggle to him. I think that being the bigger body type, I think he's still a good enough route runner that he can create separation. The challenge is that look, he's been 23 when he hits an NFL field. As we said, he's had 5 years in college. He's ticked every kind of threshold that I look for in my model, but he's done it in his 4th year in college when he was 21, and it just doesn't excite you, and that's a big concern. Is did he break out because he's good, or did he break out because he's older than everyone he's playing against, kind of thing? So that's my slight concern with him. The PFF NFL podcast were talking today that he could potentially get into the first round. If that happens, his draft capital is going to lead to him being overdrafted in Dynasty. I think he's good. I think because he's so different to basically all of the top guys in this draft, I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL do draft him a little bit higher than he needs to go. I don't hate him. I don't love him. I just think that he's a good, solid, as you said, kind of late second round pick. It's at the point of the draft where he'll be going, where I'll probably be pivoting away from wide receivers and starting to look at running backs. So I'm probably not going to have a huge amount of shares, but it's, if you're not worried about age-adjusted production, there's a lot to like there. It's just a concern that basically he only did it when he was older than everyone on the field, which, is not nothing, is it?
No, I mean, but if you look at his ex-teammate, who was also an older prospect in Velus Jones, he got drafted at pick 77 to the Bears last year, and Cedric Tillman outproduced him in that 2021 season. So I know they're completely different types of wide receiver, but I think there's a lot of hope. I think the NFL covets that college. I can't see him getting first round draft capital, but then there's been question marks on some of them wide receivers that have been touted as a late first round. So yeah, I think it is quite exciting. I'd like to get at least one share of Cedric Tillman because I think he has got that upside. But there is some question marks. So certainly, if he's going to be overdrafted, then he's someone that I'll probably look to avoid.
And I think it's worth pointing out, I was someone that hammered the Tennessee offense in terms of Hendon Hooker as a prospect. How can we analyze him as a prospect? Because it's not real offense. Well, of all the players to come out of Tennessee, whether you're looking at Velus Jones, whether you're looking at Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman is probably the only person who played a role that you could translate to an NFL offense. I'm not sure that Jalen Hyatt's going to have the same role. I'm not sure Velus Jones would have the same role that he will have in the NFL, kind of thing. So, yeah, there's definitely more translatable skills there than the rest of the guys he shared an offense with. Moving across to, before we move to our wide receiver 9, whilst you're here, 60% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. If you aren't subscribed, make sure you do it now. There is plenty more content coming your way over the next month or so. Wide receiver 9, I feel like I've overhyped him since he was 18 and produced at an obscene rate. But Kayshon Boutte, I was so excited this time last year to be talking about him as my wide receiver 1. It's just painful. But are you a Boutte believer?
Like you, Rich, I would love to be a Boutte lover because we just know what talent he possesses. But there's just so many red flags, whether it be off the field, on the field. And you can watch the tape, you put on a game and it's fantastic. And then you put on another game and you just don't see the effort. You don't see what you saw in the first game, and you just can't quite put my finger on it. And with that, I find him so hard to rank in my rookie rankings. He's my wide receiver 10, but it just feels too low. But then I put him higher and then it feels too high. So yeah, he's someone that I'm desperately struggling with. And I mean, what is he doing at the combine? Putting up the metrics that he done, the 29-inch vertical, which is the second percentile, I believe. And then he gets to his pro day, and then he just sits on a 4.540 time and all their metrics. He says, I'm happy with that. I'm not going to do any extra drills on my pro day. I mean, his agent, whoever it be right now, I think he needs firing because he's really not made him out to be someone that NFL teams can take a chance on. And it's such a shame because, I mean, in the Derby realms and a lot of people, normal people, they know they've heard of Kayshon Boutte as this next great LSU wide receiver, but it's for whatever reason it just doesn't look like it's going to happen, and it's such a shame because he's such a fun wide receiver to. He's 5'11", but he just plays bigger. He really high points the ball well. He's dominant. But then you look at the stats, and actually his contested catch percentage is really not great for what you watch on the film. But yeah, he just got that ability to play out wide. He's got the ability to play in the slot. He's been an exciting guy. Obviously, a 4-star or 5-star recruit. Yeah, he's been dominant in stretches. He's a guy that I want to take a share on just because we know how amazing he can be. But I mean, where is he going to fall in the NFL draft? Because we know the talent, but we know there's so many off the field issues. On the field, I mean, the combine couldn't have been less explosive if he tried. It's such a difficult one. And again, a bit like Tillman, he's been falling in the rookie mocks just in all over the place from second round to late third round. He's really hard to put a finger on, but yeah, I'd like to take possibly one share just in case he does find a team that wants to fix his issues, because there is a player in there. There really is.
Yeah, I think if you were to sit here and say which wide receiver in the entire draft class has the highest ceiling, it's Kayshon Boutte. And that I'm talking over Jordan Addison, over Jackson Smith-Njigba, over Quentin Johnson. Like, nobody has the ceiling that Boutte has. All you've got to do is you go back to look at his freshman year, that game against Ole Miss, where he was an 18-year-old true freshman, and he put up 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and basically completely destroyed a very good SEC team single-handedly, and did it in a range of ways. It wasn't just one way. You know, he was catching balls deep down the sideline. He was catching underneath routes and making guys miss in the open field. Like, he could be a complete receiver, but he's a complete diva. Now, I'm normally fine with a bit of diva in my wide receivers. Like, I don't want it in my quarterbacks. I don't want it in a number of other positions. But wide receiver, they're all a little bit, you know, like that. I'm happy with a bit of diva, but he takes it that bit too far. You can see on the screen the pre-draft model, he doesn't score well. It's worth pointing out that if I operated the model on a per game basis, he would be a 95th percentile prospect. But the problem is that it doesn't operate on a per game basis. And you've got to cap him for the fact that he was slow to get going in his freshman year. He was on a tearing pace in his sophomore year before he got injured. And then this last year, who the hell knows what was going on? You know, he wasn't playing, he was playing. He was injured with his ankle, he wasn't injured. And as you said, he's basically completely flopped this whole pre-draft process in terms of combine, pro day. Like, he's just not impressed. There are red flags galore. But if you're saying to me, I can potentially take someone with his ceiling at the beginning of a third round, I've got to take a flyer on that. Yes, I think there's probably like a 80-90% chance that he busts and he never does anything. And, you know, we had Jack Brentle on this show 2 months ago when we did our first kind of early look at the wide receivers, and he said Kayshon Boutte's got the chance to go undrafted. And I was like, that's mad. That's absolutely mad. I think he's more likely to go in the first round than be undrafted. And yeah, I'm happy to say I was wrong. I think there's more chance he goes undrafted than in the first round right now, because I think his pre-draft process has been shocking. But I can't get away from that potential of what he could be. And yeah, if you want to take a risk, if you want to shoot for the ceiling, then you've got to do it. But I don't think I can invest anything more than probably a late second round pick at this stage, because it is incredibly risky, because he's basically just flopped over the last year or so.
Yeah, spot on. I think that exactly the same this year. This draft class, there's a lot of guys. There's not the top end talent as such, maybe outside the quarterback position, but in terms of the depth, there's so many guys you can label from pick 10 through to the back of the second round, which are all similar. Really, you can almost put them in any sort of order. And I want to take one of those guys before I take a chance on Kayshon Boutte. But if he's as you mentioned, if he's there in the start of the third round, that's when I really take a swing on guys where if the upside's there, then that's the guy that I want to take. So I'm happy to take a couple of shares on him in the third round, and if they don't play out, then fair be it. I've only spent a third round pick.
Yeah, absolutely. So the wide receiver 10 in ADP, one of the most challenging reviews that I had in terms of what he put on tape. He is ticks a lot of boxes, bigger bodied, can play inside, can play outside, looks good running routes, can set up defenders well, looks good at the catch point, probably the best set of hands in the draft, time and time again, highlight catches that he pulls off. But he only ran about 3 routes in what is a very simplified SMU offense. So Rashee Rice, Ali, are you a believer? Are you a fan? Do you think he's got some decent potential?
I do. I do see him being a guy, if he can fall to the start of the third round in rookie drafts. Again, he's not got the ceiling as a Kayshon Boutte, but he has got that ability to outplay where you're drafting him. That reception perception tree doesn't look great. There's a whole lot of red on there for Rashee Rice, which I didn't want to see because he was a guy on film, and when you look at the metrics, he's a guy that really stood out as someone that you can take in those later rounds that has the upside. Again, a bit of a slightly bigger bodied wide receiver, as we can see, a 4-year guy that really broke out this past year in 2022 with outstanding scores, really. 156 targets, 96 receptions, 1,344 yards, and the 10 touchdowns. His college target share this year was 33.2%, 96th percentile. So, I mean, not bad for this year. And he can play, well, he played majority of the time out wide, which I think helps him stand out in this class of a lot of slot receivers. 82.5% snaps out wide. But he has shown that he can play the slot as well. It's just that route tree is not looking great, but I do think he has the ability to overcome that in the NFL and really add to his collection of things that he can do. And just looking at PFF, they seem to absolutely love Rashee Rice. They've given him an 85.9 grade for the 2022 season. And just watching his film, the games that I picked, he was a bit of a walking highlight reel, pulling off some absolutely insane catches. And he's got a bit of yak as well to his game. So he's someone that, he's got that ability to take him in them rounds after the second round, hopefully, and really increase on the value that you pick in. He's a solid route runner. He does work himself open more often than not. He's a really fun watch. Again, he's been comped to a bit of Chris Godwin. I can sort of see that in his game. Just looking at his ADP, it's in the rookie rank, the rookie mocks that I ran, 26.3 was his ADP. So he's fallen in the early part of round 2. That's where I'm happy to take him. And personally, if you do get him in the third round, I think he can possibly be one of the steals of the draft this season. Just as a whole, I'm pretty high on him. I think he's got some flaws to his game, but I think he can work on it. He's got the ability there. I think wide receiver 9-10 is about right now, but he's got the ability to outperform that.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got one of the higher ceilings in this draft. As we said, it's he ticks a lot of boxes. The concern is he's going to take time because he hasn't run routes at SMU, and it's like, this is where I wish, we were sat in the NFL front office and it's like we could bring him in for a workout and watch him run a wider range of routes to get a full evaluation, because it could be that he comes out and, is able to do a lot more than he was asked in college, but we never know until we see it. I think chances are he's probably going to take a little bit of time to develop in the NFL. And, the stats show that if you're not producing as a rookie for fantasy, it doesn't really get much better beyond then. So, the ceiling's there. I can see everything you'd like, but there is definitely a risk associated with it because there's a lot of projection in terms of can he come in and produce in a traditional NFL offense rather than what is quite a simple, straightforward SMU offense. So, of those 4 then, Ali, is there any players that you particularly love more than others? Any player that you'd kind of go to bat for, that's my guy out of those four?
I'd probably say just recently it would be Cedric Tillman, and it's someone that I probably didn't think a few weeks ago that I would be saying that, but I just watch his tape, and I've soured a little bit on Jalen Hyatt, obviously his teammate, and Cedric Tillman for me could be the better fantasy wide receiver on that team. So for me, it would be, if anyone's going to outperform their ADP, it's probably going to be Tillman for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all four of these guys, and you could probably throw Tank Dell in there as well, have got incredible potential, incredible ceilings, but the floor is basement level. So it's a really exciting part of the draft and really exciting prospects that could, potentially deliver. That concludes. We're going to come back and do some tight end reviews. But Ali, can you just remind everybody while you're here where they can find you, where they can find your work?
Yeah, so you can find me pretty active on Twitter at FF Dynasty Grill. I co-host the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show, which we record on the weekends, and it actually our latest show releases tonight on a Wednesday as a podcast format and on YouTube. So you can catch us over there talking about the rookies at the minute as it's rookie fever. Yeah, that's about it really.
Perfect. Well, make sure you go and check out Ali, as he says on Twitter, and go and check out the Wildcard. We're big supporters of the work that they all do over there. Both the Rewind and the Dynasty Show are pumping out some great content at the moment. Whilst you're here, if you're not yet, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button. It makes everybody else aware of what's going on.